The galaxy had always underestimated humanity, viewing Earth as a backwater planet, a quaint world of fragile creatures barely capable of coordinating beyond their atmosphere. Yet as a council of Xylar convened in their crystalline chambers orbiting the gas giant Vareth, they debated casually over the reports from the outer systems, laughing at the latest human diplomatic envoy who had returned with nothing but polite refusal to alien demands, little realizing that each refusal was not cowardice or incompetence, but a deliberate calculation, a patience honed over millennia survival on a planet that had weathered asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, plagues, and wars that had threatened their very existence. And as the Xylarian generals boasted of their fleet strength, each ship bristling with weapons designed to obliterate entire planets, they failed to see that humanity had been watching, listening, and learning, that their eyes were not turned inward but outward, cataloging alien technology, studying tactics, and building not only defenses but systems that could turn offense into a science. And when the first strike came, a seemingly minor incursion into the Vega sector where human miners had been extracting rare crystalline elements, the attackers expected compliance, perhaps a token protest. Yet what they encountered instead was a precision strike against their supply lines, orchestrated by humans using reverse-engineered alien tech that allowed them to anticipate movements, exploit blind spots, and neutralize threats with surgical efficiency. And while the alien fleets regrouped, the humans had already deployed reconnaissance drones that mapped entire star lanes with unparalleled accuracy, each probe feeding data to AI cores that processed and predicted enemy responses, revealing vulnerabilities the Xylarians had assumed were unknowable. And as reports reached the Council, panic began to ripple through the chambers. Ships designed to intimidate and dominate were now being systematically disabled, their crews bewildered by attacks that seemed impossible. And on Earth, in vast command centers built into former deserts and mountain ranges, humans watched these developments unfold with calm precision, their leaders discussing contingencies, coordinating civilian evacuation plans in tandem with military maneuvers, and maintaining a level of discipline and cohesion that no alien species had thought possible, while at the same time they were preparing a second phase, one that involved not only counterattacks but psychological warfare, sending messages to the wider galactic community highlighting the failures and overconfidence of the Xylarian command, reminding all observers that humans had survived the rise and fall of their own civilizations, learned from the mistakes of countless predecessors, and now had the ability to turn their knowledge into overwhelming force. And as they moved from system to system, securing allies among minor civilizations that had long suffered under Xylarian oversight, humanity's reach extended like a shadow over the stars, each liberated colony reinforcing the humans' growing network of influence, while alien commanders increasingly debated internally, unable to agree on how to respond to a species they had categorized as inconsequential. Yet with every hesitation, humans refined their strategies, exploiting the divisions and miscommunications among alien fleets, conducting operations that were as much about control or perception as physical dominance. And when the first direct confrontation occurred near the Perseus Rift, the aliens expected an easy victory against a planet-bound fleet, only to find themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their capital ships corralled into precise choke points, energy weapons rendered ineffective by adaptive shielding derived from human research, and boarding attempts met with coordinated countermeasures that used gravity manipulation, drones, and environmental control to devastating effect. And the galaxy began to take notice, whispers of human potential spreading from one system to another, as civilizations that had long feared the Xylarians realized that the humans' restraint had been deliberate, that every alliance formed, every diplomatic overture extended, had been a means to study, understand, and ultimately prepare for the moment when humanity would step fully into galactic prominence. And within Earth's orbit, the world's leaders convened in a council unlike any before, mixing military, scientific, and diplomatic minds, discussing not just tactics but philosophy, the ethical implications of war, and the strategic necessity of demonstrating strength without needless destruction. Yet they understood that their patience had limits, that their opponents had already underestimated the depth of human ingenuity. And the first strike of true human wrath, a coordinated assault designed to cripple alien supply lines, disrupt command communications, and liberate captured colonies, executed with precision across light years, sent shockwaves through the Council of Xylar and beyond, making the galaxy realize that humanity's wrath was not blind fury but a carefully honed, calculated, and devastating force that had been patiently built over centuries, and as the stars themselves seemed to bear witness to the unfolding drama. Alien leaders could only grasp, too late, that the era of underestimating humanity had ended, that their arrogance had invited a response that would redefine power, strategy, and survival in the galaxy. And while humans continued their campaigns of methodical precision, securing systems, protecting allies, and demonstrating technologies that blurred the line between science and what aliens once considered impossible, the Xylarians and their allies confronted an uncomfortable truth: that the underestimated species had become a galactic force, not merely surviving but reshaping the cosmic order, proving to all that humanity's true strength had always been hidden, its wrath measured, patient, and unstoppable. And as the stars burned with the reflected light of these conflicts, the echoes of a new galactic hierarchy began to take shape, one in which humans, once dismissed, now stood at the center. The galaxy finally learning the hard way that to provoke humanity was to awaken a storm that no alien foresight had ever predicted. The aftermath of the Perseus Rift engagement sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy, as reports from surviving Xylarian commanders reached the outer systems describing fleets shattered not by numbers but by tactics, the efficiency and ingenuity of human forces leaving alien analysts scrambling to revise their understanding of what a so-called primitive species could achieve. And on Earth, celebrations were tempered by strategic foresight, humans knowing that victory in one sector was only the beginning, that the galaxy still underestimated the depth of their knowledge and adaptability, and as they prepared the next phase of operations, human engineers worked tirelessly in orbital factories, producing ships that combined stealth, speed, and firepower in ways no alien intelligence had anticipated, integrating adaptive AI that could predict enemy maneuvers while simultaneously coordinating with human captains trained not only in combat but in psychological strategy, diplomacy, and interstellar logistics, while civilians in liberated colonies began to rebuild infrastructure with human guidance, witnessing firsthand the practical genius of humans who could transform devastated systems into functional hubs in a matter of weeks. And as alien species convened emergency councils, debates erupted over how to respond to humans whose patience and restraint had been their greatest weapon. For the humans had spent decades, centuries even, studying their adversaries, their cultures, their military doctrines, and now deployed that knowledge with precision, hitting weak points, exploiting arrogance, and manipulating perceptions to isolate and demoralize. And in the void between stars, human task forces executed simultaneous operations across multiple sectors, disabling key Xylarian communication relays, intercepting supply convoys, and liberating planets that had been under occupation, while propaganda campaigns, subtle and sophisticated, emphasize human mercy, efficiency, and the futility of resistance, causing minor civilizations to reconsider alliances. And as the Xylarian High Command attempted to consolidate control, internal dissent grew, as some factions saw humans as invincible, others urged retreat, and still others plotted desperate counterattacks that were promptly neutralized by humans who had anticipated each possible move, using intelligence networks that spanned liberated sectors. And while the galaxy watched, astonished at the systematic dismantling of an empire once considered untouchable, humanity prepared to unveil technologies that would redefine the parameters of space warfare, including gravity manipulation engines, subspace communication arrays impervious to jamming, and energy weapons capable of adaptive responses in real time, each innovation a testament to human ingenuity, creativity, and the relentless drive to survive and thrive. And in diplomatic arenas, humans extended olive branches only after, demonstrating overwhelming superiority, securing alliances not through intimidation but through undeniable competence and mutual benefit, earning the loyalty of species that had long suffered under alien rule. And as humans negotiated terms of collective defense, resource sharing, and technological exchange, their presence reshaped galactic politics, turning former skeptics into collaborators. While the Xylarians face a crisis of legitimacy, their once feared fleets now symbols of hubris. Their leadership fractured as failure became evident, and in the midst of these upheavals, human scientists discovered remnants of ancient civilizations long thought extinct, unlocking technologies and strategies that allowed further advances in defense and exploration, ensuring that humanity's dominance was not just in combat but in knowledge, planning, and influence. And as the second major confrontation approached near the Orion expanse, humans implemented a strategy that combined feints, misdirection, and overwhelming tactical coordination, luring Xylarian forces into zones where human ships held absolute advantage, forcing the aliens into chaotic retreats while humans maintained disciplined, controlled assaults. And as the alien command structure faltered under continuous pressure, panic and confusion spread, leading to catastrophic miscalculations, self-inflicted losses, and the realization that humans did not fight as individual factions, but as a unified species with purpose. And in liberated sectors, humans coordinated reconstruction, ensuring that infrastructure, trade, and communication were restored faster than anyone believed possible, further solidifying loyalty and demonstrating that human capacity for organization extended beyond war, encompassing governance, logistics, and societal rebuilding on interstellar scales. And as the Orion Expanse campaign drew to a close, humanity had not only shattered enemy fleets but established new norms for interstellar coordination, diplomacy, and defense, while alien species began to understand that underestimating humans had been a critical mistake, that restraint, patience, and careful observation were weapons as powerful as any ship or weapon system, and that the species they had mocked for centuries possessed an unparalleled ability to combine intellect, creativity, and strategy, turning adversity into advantage. And as humans returned to their bases, planned for the next engagement, and integrated newly liberated allies into their networks, the galaxy itself seemed to recognize a shift in balance, the stars themselves bearing witness to a species whose wrath was methodical, controlled, devastating, and now undeniably dominant. And while alien leaders debated the morality, necessity, and futility of opposing humans further, every calculation they had ever made was revealed to be obsolete, as humanity continued its march across the systems, liberating, protecting, and reshaping the galactic order with a precision, patience, and unyielding determination that defined their species, leaving no doubt that the stars had indeed witnessed humanity's wrath, and those who had doubted now learned, to their profound regret, that to provoke humans was to awaken a force whose reach, intelligence, and power could never be ignored or resisted effectively. As the human fleets advanced deeper into previously contested sectors, the scale and precision of their operations became impossible for the galaxy to ignore, with every maneuver demonstrating not only military might but logistical genius, as supply lines adapted instantly to shifting battlefronts, orbital shipyards repaired and refitted vessels faster than alien intelligence could track, and humans simultaneously deployed humanitarian aid to liberated populations, winning hearts and minds, while demonstrating the stark contrast between alien brutality and human discipline. And while the Xylarian leadership scrambled to understand the human approach, debates turned into accusations, factions within the alien councils arguing over blame, strategy, and the frightening realization that their intelligence had consistently underestimated a species capable of learning at an exponential rate, adapting, and exploiting weaknesses that no conventional analysis had predicted. And as the humans reached the Xylarian Nebula, they encountered the remnants of the Xevian fleets, once considered elite strike forces, now immobilized by humans who had anticipated every tactical play, and in a series of engagements that combined electronic warfare, predictive AI targeting, and precise boarding operations, humans systematically dismantled enemy capabilities without excessive collateral damage, turning the enemy's strength into vulnerability. And through it all, human commanders maintain constant communication with each other and allied species, their coordination so seamless that the term fleet seemed almost inadequate, as each ship operated autonomously while contributing to the greater strategy, adapting to real-time intelligence faster than the Xylarian sensors could register. And on the planetary level, liberated populations began participating in reconstruction, their trust in humans growing with each demonstration of capability, compassion, and efficiency. While alien propagandists struggled to justify failure, their rhetoric unraveling as eyewitnesses reported both the devastation of their forces and the organized restoration led by humans. And as the Xylarian Nebula campaign progressed, humanity revealed innovations in cloaking, subspace jamming, and adaptive energy shielding that rendered traditional alien tactics nearly useless, forcing the Xylarian commanders to retreat in disarray, leaving behind fleets and installations that humans immediately reproposed to support further operations. And in the aftermath, humanity not only consolidated territory but integrated new allies into a rapidly expanding network, sharing technology, training, and intelligence, creating a coalition whose collective strength outpaced anything the Xylarian leadership had imagined possible. And while the aliens attempted to regroup in the Outer Rim, humans leveraged their growing advantage to conduct surgical strikes against supply hubs, communication arrays, and strategic outposts, further destabilizing alien coordination. And each victory reinforced a lesson that no amount of technological superiority, arrogance, or fleet size could compensate for the human combination of foresight, adaptability, and relentless pursuit of objectives. And as the campaign moved toward the heart of the Xylarian space, the humans initiated a multi-pronged offensive designed not just to destroy but to demonstrate, projecting their presence across multiple star systems simultaneously, liberating worlds, securing resources, and dismantling command infrastructure with surgical precision, all while maintaining strict discipline to minimize collateral damage, a dual approach that emphasized both power and restraint. And in doing so, humanity forced a wider galactic community to witness a species whose wrath was tempered by intelligence, strategy, and an unshakable moral compass, and alien leaders could only watch in disbelief as entire fleets were neutralized, occupied systems restored, and previously loyal allies turned against them, realizing that their prior assumptions about humanity were catastrophically flawed. And as the humans prepared for the next phase of the campaign, a decisive confrontation in the Hyperion expanse where the remaining Xylarian forces had concentrated their strength, the galaxy braced for a display of human ingenuity and coordination that would redefine interstellar warfare, diplomacy, and the understanding of what a species once considered primitive could achieve when driven by survival, honor, and the relentless desire to protect not only their home but the innocent, proving once again that humanity's wrath was not mere reaction, but a calculated, unstoppable force that had been patiently prepared for centuries. And as scouts relayed the positions, capabilities, and dispositions of enemy formations, human strategists refined their approach, deploying decoys, electronic interference, and adaptive strike teams that exploited every observed weakness, while simultaneously ensuring that liberated populations could participate in defense and infrastructure operations, demonstrating a level of societal integration and resilience that no alien intelligence had anticipated. And as the first volleys of the Hyperion Expanse campaign commenced, the stars themselves seemed to bear witness to humanity's methodical, devastating, and overwhelmingly effective demonstration of power, coordination, and moral authority, leaving every alien faction scrambling to adapt to a species whose patience, intelligence, and capacity for coordinated action have been consistently underestimated, and whose wrath, once awakened, reshaped the entire galactic order in ways that no prior civilization could have predicted, solidifying humanity's place not only as survivors but as dominant arbiters of strategy, justice, and influence across the stars. The Hyperion Expanse campaign quickly became the defining moment of humanity's emergence as a galactic power, as fleets coordinated across light years with precision that alien intelligence agencies could barely comprehend, each human ship operating with a level of autonomy and interconnectivity that made conventional tactics obsolete, while orbital command centers on Earth and its colonies processed torrents of real-time data, predicting enemy maneuvers, adapting strategies, and deploying specialized task forces to intercept, distract, or neutralize threats with surgical accuracy. And as the Xylarian High Command attempted to consolidate their forces for a decisive counterstrike, they found themselves continually outmaneuvered, their attempts at encirclement foiled by humans who anticipated every contingency, leveraging adaptive AI, stealth technology, and a deep understanding of enemy psychology to turn overconfidence into vulnerability. And throughout the expanse, human engineers and scientists unveiled innovations that redefined energy projection, shielding, and navigation, allowing ships to operate in previously inaccessible regions while maintaining coordination across interstellar distances. And as the alien fleet suffered repeated losses, panic began to spread through their ranks, their traditional chain of command breaking down as mid-level officers were forced to make split-second decisions without support or guidance, creating gaps that humans exploited with relentless efficiency, while simultaneously sending overtures to minor civilizations within Xylarian space, demonstrating the power, mercy, and organizational genius of humans, securing alliances that further isolated enemy forces. And on planets previously under occupation, humans coordinated reconstruction and security, teaching local populations to maintain stability, defend themselves, and manage resources, creating a network of loyal allies whose contributions amplified. Human influence far beyond what conventional numbers would suggest, and as the campaign reached its apex near the center of the expanse, the Xylarian leadership finally realized that their assumptions about human limitations had been catastrophically wrong, that patience, observation, and strategic restraint had masked an intelligence, adaptability, and capacity for coordinated action that surpassed any previous species they had encountered, and as humans executed simultaneous strikes against communication hubs, supply depots, and fleet assembly points, they did so with minimal loss to civilian life, projecting power not through wanton destruction but through disciplined, calculated force that demoralized enemy combatants and inspired confidence among allies, while propaganda carefully crafted by humans emphasized not domination but liberation, showcasing the difference between alien brutality and human efficiency, compassion, and precision. And as a final engagement in the expanse unfolded, humans employed decoy fleets, electronic countermeasures, and gravitational manipulation to corral enemy forces into zones where escape and retreat were impossible, forcing the Xylarian commanders into desperate maneuvers that were anticipated and neutralized, resulting in total operational collapse. And as the dust settled, humans controlled the expanse, liberated worlds celebrated, and alien factions reeled from the realization that they had been outmatched not by superior numbers but by an unparalleled combination of foresight, adaptability, and coordinated intelligence. And in the aftermath, human leadership convened councils that included representatives from liberated civilizations, sharing governance, technology, and strategic planning, demonstrating that their power extended beyond military dominance into societal and political innovation, solidifying alliances and creating networks that would ensure stability and influence long after the last Xylarian ship had retreated. And as the Expanse campaign concluded, the galaxy collectively acknowledged that humanity was no longer a peripheral species but a dominant force whose wrath, patience, and ingenuity had reshaped the balance of power, proving that underestimation of humans was the gravest error any civilization could commit, and that from the shadows of obscurity, Earth's people had risen to demonstrate that intelligence, adaptability, and strategic restraint, when combined with coordinated action and moral clarity, could create a force as unstoppable and transformative as any weapon, fleet, or empire in the known galaxy, leaving the stars themselves as witnesses to a species whose wrath was precise, disciplined, and utterly devastating to those who had ever doubted their potential. Following the decisive victory in the Hyperion expanse, humanity did not slow its advance, instead leveraging its momentum to expand influence into contested systems while continuing to demonstrate a level of operational sophistication that left alien intelligence agencies scrambling to understand their opponent, with every maneuver, whether military, diplomatic, or logistical, meticulously planned and executed with precision. And as humans moved into the Aelios corridor, they encountered remnants of combined Xylarian and allied fleets, desperate to halt the human advance. Yet even these hastily organized forces were no match for coordinated task groups employing adaptive targeting systems, predictive AI, and modular fleet formations capable of responding instantaneously to changing threats. While behind the front lines, humans integrated liberated populations into the operational structure, teaching navigation, communications, and defense strategies, creating a multi-species coalition whose cohesion and capability further amplified the human advantage. And as alien leaders debated whether to consolidate or flee, their internal divisions became fatal, with Rogue Admiral pursuing counterattacks that humans anticipated, neutralized, and exploited to gain control over vital systems. And while human forces secured key jump gates, energy depots, and production facilities, they also established humanitarian networks, restoring trade, healthcare, and governance structures, ensuring loyalty and stability in newly liberated regions. And as the campaign pressed toward the Outer Rim, humans unveiled technologies previously considered impossible, including hyper-efficient energy storage, gravitational field manipulation for ship maneuvering, and quantum communication arrays impervious to interception or jamming, forcing enemy commanders into tactical decisions that had no chance of success. And with each engagement, humans combined psychological strategy with military prowess, deploying decoy fleets, disinformation campaigns, and controlled demonstrations of power that eroded enemy morale while bolstering Allied confidence. And as the Xylarian fleets continued to retreat, They realized too late that their prior assumptions about human limitations were catastrophically flawed, that patience, observation, and strategic restraint had masked a species capable of not only learning but anticipating, adapting, and outmaneuvering at every turn, and on planets previously considered lost, humans coordinated reconstruction and defense, training local populations to maintain stability and protect themselves, turning liberated systems into self-sustaining allies whose loyalty and contribution further reinforce human influence, and as the Aelios Corridor campaign culminated in the capture of the central energy hub that supplied much of the Xylarian outer fleet, the galaxy witnessed a species whose wrath was methodical, precise, and unstoppable, combining intelligence, adaptability, and moral clarity in a force that no amount of technological advantage, fleet size, or arrogance could overcome. And while alien leaders scrambled to reconcile their failures, humans had already begun planning the next phase of operations, targeting strategic centers in the galactic core where the Xylarian command had consolidated, simultaneously demonstrating power, mercy, and efficiency, showing that humanity's wrath was not born of cruelty but of patience, calculation, and the unyielding drive to protect their species, allies, and principles. And as these operations unfolded, the galaxy began to understand a simple yet profound truth. Underestimating humanity was not merely dangerous, it was catastrophic. As each planet liberated, fleet neutralized, and alliance secured, expanded not only human influence but reshaped the political, economic, and strategic landscape of the galaxy, leaving no doubt that Earth's people had emerged from obscurity to claim their place among the dominant powers, and that the stars themselves now bore witness to a wrath that was controlled, devastating, and irrevocably transformative, a force that had been patiently honed for centuries and unleashed with unerring precision on those who had ever doubted the true capabilities of humanity. With the Aelios Corridor secured and the outer rim stabilized under human oversight, humanity set its sights on the heart of the Xylarian Empire, a cluster of densely populated systems whose combined fleets and resources had once seemed invincible. Yet even here, humans demonstrated that victory was not simply about firepower but about mastery of strategy, coordination, and understanding the enemy's psychology. As multi-pronged task forces infiltrated hyperspace corridors, employed adaptive cloaking to evade detection, and use precision strikes to neutralize supply depots, communication nodes, and command hubs, while simultaneously projecting signals of liberation and stability to occupied populations, inspiring loyalty and cooperation. And as alien commanders attempted to regroup, human intelligence anticipated every possible countermeasure, using a combination of reconnaissance drones, quantum communication analysis, and simulation-based predictions to orchestrate ambushes, trap fleets, and isolate units before they could coordinate effectively. And while the Xylarian High Command debated internal blame, human leaders engaged in careful diplomacy with minor civilizations, offering protection, trade, and technological sharing in exchange of cooperation, steadily building a coalition whose strength magnified human power while further isolating their enemies. And throughout the campaign, humans maintained a balance between demonstrating overwhelming force and exercising restraint, ensuring civilian populations were unharmed, infrastructure preserved, and moral authority reinforced, contrasting sharply with alien brutality and further demoralizing opposing forces. And in the strategic stronghold of the Xylarian core, humans deployed specialized strike groups capable of planetary-scale operations, combining orbital control, electronic warfare, and targeted ground interventions to neutralize enemy defenses while minimizing collateral damage. And as alien fleets attempted desperate counterattacks, human commanders anticipated, countered, and exploited every maneuver, turning aggression into disadvantage, chaos into control, and hesitation into defeat. And throughout liberated systems, humans established governance networks, logistical hubs, and interstellar trade lines, ensuring stability, self-sufficiency, and loyalty among allies while further consolidating human influence. And as the campaign progressed, innovations previously thought theoretical became operational realities, from adaptive energy shield to autonomous drone swarms capable of executing complex coordinated attacks, demonstrating that human ingenuity extended far beyond conventional understanding. And as the Xylarian Empire crumbled under the pressure of sustained multi-system operations, alien species began to grasp the depth of their miscalculation. Realizing that humanity's patience had been a tool, their restraint a strategy, and that the unleashed wrath they now faced was a result of centuries of preparation, observation, and disciplined action, and in the climactic confrontations near the galactic core, humans executed simultaneous orbital and planetary strikes with flawless timing, securing critical systems, liberating populations, neutralizing enemy fleets, and establishing control over key resources, leaving alien commanders unable to respond. Their previous assumptions about human weakness laid bare as catastrophic errors, and as dust settled, humans not only controlled the Xylarian core but had established a coalition of liberated systems operating under shared governance, technological exchange, and strategic collaboration, proving that their wrath was as much about constructive power as destructive force. And as reports of these operations spread across the galaxy, the narrative shifted universally. Humanity was no longer underestimated, no longer a curiosity or a backwater species, but a dominant, disciplined, and morally grounded force whose patience, intelligence, adaptability, and strategic mastery had reshaped the galactic order, leaving the stars themselves as witnesses to a species whose wrath was unstoppable, precise, and transformative, and whose presence will forever alter the understanding of power, survival, and civilization among every species in known space. With the Xylarian core under human control and the last organized resistance crumbling across the central systems, humanity transitioned from the culmination of war to the establishment of a new galactic order, not through tyranny but through calculated stewardship, demonstrating that their wrath had always been tempered by intelligence, strategy, and ethical clarity, as fleets patrolled former battle zones to ensure security, while liberated worlds rebuilt infrastructure, trade, and governance under human guidance. And in these operations, humans revealed the full extent of their technological superiority, from adaptive planetary shield to instantaneous subspace communications, ensuring that both allies and former enemies understood that humanity's power was absolute, precise, and integrated. And as alien leadership struggled to comprehend the comprehensive defeat of forces once thought invincible, they faced the undeniable reality that humans had never been a species to fight recklessly, but to learn, plan, and execute with a patience and intelligence that turned every assumption against them. And as a coalition of liberated civilizations began forming councils, shared technology, and mutual defense pacts under human coordination, it became clear that the galaxy had entered an era in which humanity not only dominated militarily but guided politically, economically, and socially, leveraging their organizational genius to ensure stability and prevent the resurgence of destructive conflicts, while simultaneously maintaining the moral high ground by protecting civilians, fostering education, and integrating former adversaries into cooperative networks. And as humans consolidated the final sectors, they demonstrated capabilities that no other species had achieved: instantaneous planetary communication, fleet-wide coordination across light years, and adaptive technologies that turned enemy tactics into predictable outcomes. And while alien species reassessed their histories, strategies, and assumptions, the message was unmistakable. Humanity's wrath had been deliberate, calculated, and unavoidable only because of centuries of preparation, patience, and disciplined observation. And as representatives of every major civilization gathered across liberated sectors, they witnessed humans balancing authority with mercy, power with restraint, and innovation with governance, revealing that the species they had once mocked had mastered not only the art of war, but the complex responsibilities of leadership across interstellar scales. And in the final confrontations that had defined the collapse of Xylarian power, humans coordinated strikes, rescues, and reconstruction with such precision that no alien faction could resist, their fleets dismantled, territory secured, and citizens liberated. And as the galaxy observed these actions, it became clear that humanity's restraint had been a weapon as effective as any ship or weapon system, that their wrath had always been guided by intelligence and ethical purpose, and that their rise was both inevitable and unstoppable. And in the quiet aftermath, humans established permanent coalition structures, technological sharing agreements, and interstellar safety protocols, ensuring that the mistakes of the Xylarian Empire would never recur, while simultaneously demonstrating that the legacy of their wrath was not destruction but enlightenment, stability, and preparation for a new era in which humanity stood as a measure of strategic, moral, and technological excellence. And as the stars themselves seemed to bear witness to the transformation, every alien species learned the hard way that to provoke humanity was to awaken a force whose patience, intelligence, adaptability, and restrained power could reshape entire civilizations, redefine the balance of the galaxy, and leave an indelible mark on the cosmos, proving once and for all that Earth's people had transcended every expectation, demonstrating that true wrath was not chaos but calculated brilliance, unstoppable precision, and an unwavering commitment to survival, protection, and the ethical exercise of unmatched power across the stars. And as humanity looked toward the future, the galaxy itself had changed, no longer dismissing Earth, no longer underestimating its people, and fully aware that the wrath they had witnessed was only the beginning of a species whose capacity for greatness, discipline, and transformation had finally been revealed to all.